missing a lecture?
No, he asked me to tell it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
What a privilege.
I'm freaking out.
Sure, it's fine. Do professors normally report doing that?
I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, I'm dead. I lose it. I can't do it. Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Okay. Hello. So, I think this is the first time I've come through this term, right? Yeah. Before this, I had Carol and again, my name is John Nakai. I'm with Integrated Engineering and Materials Engineering, and I think I see you maybe 2 or 3 more times during the term as well. So it's a pleasure to be back. So for today, you've gone through, for many of you, you've gone through 2 studios. I think for some of you, you've only gone through 1, is that right? With the snow day, there will have to be some accommodations for what happened, so for some missing studios. So if you did miss a studio, how many of you did miss the Wednesday? Yeah, so we looked at the schedule, and again, I don't know if the message conveyed it, but we tried to figure out the best path forward, and it seemed like the best way to go with it was to give all of your studios 1 more free sign up for week 3 or week 4. And timing-wise, that gave you just about the right amount of the same amount of time working with the hand tools, because I think the week 2 studio is about half the session. And with maybe the bonus that it comes a little bit later, so it's closer to the competition day, so that maybe makes up for it just a touch. The penalty is that you do have to work on some of the Arduino things outside of the studios yourselves, but hopefully that's something you can pull off between now and Monday as well. So for today, we'll be talking a little bit more about trying to fill in some of the details and build up your designs in terms of thinking about how to justify the decisions that you're going to make with experiments, with tests that you can perform, with quantitative things that you can look at, with the tools that you have available, with the component kits that you have as well. We want you to be able to take those things into account, to pick which of those things, which of the areas of your retrieval system has the greatest amount of risk, and then to think about ways to mitigate that, to try and lessen that, to try to test around that and make decisions around that as well. And so for today, we'll be looking at a bit of the risk assessment protocol and applying it to your projects. Looking through it within your groups, identifying some of the significant risks that are associated, and then to go through, draft up some experiments that you can do either in the studio or outside on your own, thinking about how you can do those experiments, can help make decisions, and then help to justify the decisions that you have made up on your posters at the end. I think one thing that we found over the years is that the groups, as they're presenting their ideas and presenting their posters at the end, some of the designs are good. They can be very creative, but there are some groups that struggle with this part. There are some groups that really struggle with thinking about what can we do to analyze our system to make sure that what we're building is actually the right thing. That the sizes of components or the way in which we put them together actually makes the most sense. And so we want you to spend some serious time thinking about that and some time in the studios in week 3 and week 4 working on that as well. Okay, so this is where we are in the timeline. You've worked on some prototyping. We're talking about experimentation risk today. Next week, there's a whole bunch of time in the studio to work on your systems, but also a lot in class to work on drawings. So first heads up, make sure that you bring drawing tools with you for all the sessions next week. And then the final week will be planning out posters and giving and receiving feedback. And then week 5 is an overlap week. In the studios, you'll be doing the competition and poster session. And then getting rolling with module 6 in the class. And so thinking about what we had in the studios, it was unfortunate timing with things, right? With the release of the videos and what happened really on the other side of the world with the plane that went there. And we talked about that as instructors, about how to handle it and what we should share about that, and we wondered whether or not we should even pull the information, and we left it in place because we thought it would be more awkward if we pulled it. And we acknowledge that when these kinds of incidents happen, no matter what kind of incidents of this kind of scale, it's catastrophic. It's devastating. And I don't know whether amongst the people that you hang out with in the first year or your family members were affected. But here at UBC, I can tell you that a lot of groups were. And my wife works here on campus, and in her research group there was a family member who was on the plane. I've talked to a few individual students as well. And these things are hard to go through. So I don't know if you're in that position. I don't know if you have people that you know that are in that position, that are just in a state where even now they're trying to struggle for support. But if you find that, ESS is often your first place to go. But if you feel comfortable, find an instructor and just give them a heads up as well. Okay. Now, having said all that, a lot of the examples that we use in engineering are kind of like this as well, right? I don't know if you remember in Module 4, there were a lot of discussions about autonomous vehicles and autonomous cars, right? About decision-making that has to happen. And a lot of those examples, were a little bit casual. We were talking about whether the car should do A or B and how you would make decisions. And again, in situations like that, there's going to be people who are affected by those types of situations as well. And a lot of the things that we will talk about, the incidents that we will talk about for engineering, sometimes broach on those topics too. And so both things, we want you to be comfortable thinking about the situations when we talk about them in class, but we also want you to be aware that there's times when you shouldn't be comfortable, and just to be aware of the people around you. So with all that in mind, I'd like to dive in a little bit here. When we use this example, it was to deal with this balance, right, between the balance between, I guess, the likelihood and the severity of incidents. And part of that is the decision-making tool for how you might make decisions for the projects that you're working on, for the decisions on how you deal with certain types of risks. And so one of the things that we had given you as a tool was one of these risk identification templates. And this is a nice way to help try to classify different types of risks. Right? And I should give you another heads up. The tools and the thought process here that you see for this project, you'll see it repeated for your future years as well. I just went through pretty much the same exercise with my third year integrated engineering students for their projects. And their projects are all over the map, right? Each group of 4 to 6 students is working on something totally different. and yet they're still going through this exercise of very carefully going through and thinking about what's the riskiest part of their projects, what part of the projects they can control, what part of the projects can't they control, and how do they deal with that. And so being able to go through and classify what those risks actually look like is a nice exercise just to get a handle of all the things that could put your project at risk. And so the way we do it in APSC 101 is to take those risk sources and then to divide them into these three areas: preventable ones, strategic ones, which are ones that you can choose to take advantage of, I guess, for higher reward, but maybe putting things at higher risk. And then external risks, where they really are outside of the control of what you're doing. And I think that the online videos give the example of the human-powered helicopter team and putting those things together. And then the categories of trying to think of these things in terms of the safety of what you're working on, and of the people and the environment and the equipment. Technical challenges that you're going to have when working on things. For me, I know that I struggle sometimes thinking about the difference between project management and operational things. And to some degree, there is some overlap there. Thinking about how on the project management side, maybe it has to do with thinking about making sure that things work within the constraints of the project, with the resources that are available, with the time that's available, with the people that are working on it that are available. And operational has more to do with just the overall decision-making process with what happens, and maybe the organization of it. So not just the resources, but just making sure that the way in which the group is operating, the way in which it's set, the way in which it makes decisions actually works. And then other stuff that we'll put together. And so the risk matrix, you'll see this relatively often, and I think it's pretty straightforward, right? When it comes to thinking about crossing and understanding and classifying things in terms of the likelihood of how they would happen, and the severity with which they might have on their on the outcomes. As well. So you did have a bit of a flow chart to work through as well, and this is a way to think about how you work through the risks that you have in front of you, and to see whether or not you can address them in some organized way. And I think the videos did a reasonable job of walking through the rationale for this, the procedure for this, of being able to identify all those risks using some of the tools that we talked about. Being able to do some kind of risk analysis, so being able to classify the risks, being able to identify the sources, seeing what happens if something goes wrong, dealing with the severity and the likelihood. And then at some point deciding, is this an acceptable risk, yes or no? And this can be a pretty big decision for certain things. If it isn't acceptable and you are going to have to do something to change the situation, right? If you're doing something to change the environment in which you're working in, you try to reduce it, and if you do reduce it, that's fine. But then you do have to go back and identify and start the process again. And just to emphasize that point, because I think it will get addressed in other stages later, by changing the situation, you may have created other risks. And so that's the part where it is necessary to just go back, look at the big picture again, and assess whether or not new risks have been created as a result of whatever actions that you take. So that's something that we do want you to emphasize. Okay, so the list of managing risks, there's a few things that you can do. You can avoid it, you can try to minimize or mitigate it, you can accept it, do nothing, or you can try to figure out ways to transfer or share that risk with other bodies as well. So the things that are here, we do want you to apply those things to this kind of procedure to your projects as well, to your retrieval systems. And so that's going to be part of the exercise for today, as well as for, again, presenting your posters at the end. And so just thinking about what this risk analysis might look like, you've got this class to identify some project risks. You're going to draft up some experiments. By Monday, we want you to submit a proposed experiment design. And so that could be just a draft. Just the ideas that you produced by the end of this class are going to be sufficient. For those of you watching it on video at home, hello, there's a video that we're taking for the class at Michigan on Wednesday. Work together and try to put together this plan over the weekend amongst some of the group members and submit it online as well. In your studio, you will be encouraged to spend some of the time working on these experiments. You may choose not to because you just don't, you'd rather devote the time to actually making things, and you have a plan for doing those experiments out of the studio. But that's something that you're going to have to decide and think about ahead of time. I think there's going to be some force scales, there's going to be some measuring tapes, some protractors, and some other measurement tools for you to use in the studios as well. So those will be available in weeks 3 and weeks 4. And then after you conduct your experiments, we hope that you incorporate those into your designs, and then finally work those into your posters as well as an explanation for how you made decisions and how you ended up with the final claw design, how the final retrieval system design as well. And so just thinking about what the competition was, you probably got this on your brain already, but that round 1 variety is just a bunch of random things in piles, and you pick them up one by one and drop them off. There are big things, there are flat things, there are heavy things, and so whatever system that you have should try to accommodate all those. The bulk round is a little bit different, so we just put all that pasta out in a big bucket for you, and then you pour it onto a tray however you want to in order to go pick things up. So if you want to spread things out as even as you'd like, you can do that. If you think you can make a tower of pasta and try to pick up that tower of pasta, sure, good luck. I've tried. Can't, you can make it like a little hill pasta, not so much. And so maybe that's part of your strategy as well about thinking about how you do that. And then round 3, it's pretty random. Things are big, but thinking about how you get your studio organized to get teams of 2 or 3 different claws to attempt to lift these larger objects, that's going to be part of what you can do a little bit of planning on ahead of time as well. So those are just reminders of things that again, you already knew. And so there's going to be, we'll give you some time here to work on filling in that table. And so the activity here is, what are the biggest technical risks with your team's proposed solution? And so in the table over here, we have all these different areas, safety, technical, project management. We want you to focus on this row, okay? And to try to think about filling in that row with different elements. And so technical risks, as a reminder, are related to the design and manufacturing of the device that prevents it from working as intended. So what we're going to do is this. For 1 minute, we'll just have some quiet time where you just sit and think, what kind of risks, what kind of issues are you going to have with design and manufacturing where it's not going to work as intended? And then after that, so after a minute, we'll let you work as a group to try to fill in what you can on that table, on that line. And then we'll reconnect after a bit. Okay. So, like I said, we'll give you a minute, starting now just for quiet thinking time. Listening. it. So work together for about 3 or 4 minutes and see if you can fill in areas on that table.
I thought about the portal and I didn't think about the ground.
I think probably a preventable risk is like how heavy we make the claw. I mean how like robust it is. Like we can. I mean, never mind. That's more of a strategic one. If you want to add like more weight, it will be stronger, able to carry more stuff, and also the motor might not be able to support it. So, but then yeah, external, maybe just like a equipment malfunction or something. Like the motor doesn't work.
We have a lot of ideas that we can account, but for preventable, it might be if we can take the time to make sure the bend is not flat and like the bend stays are properly made under certain rules, like if the metal doesn't start to bend out, something doesn't happen. External is going to be if like if you do end up building a claw and we don't test to make sure that the pieces aren't going to get locked together in certain positions. And it's going to be, I don't know, basic strategy for this would be like how big of a claw can you make with general strategy, like without the motor. Yeah, I can make a list. Sorry? Oh, yeah. Able.
Do we all need to submit this?
I don't know. I'm assuming because
every time like the person has to, if they say like
Right.
Right. You're right.
Okay. chance to think a little bit about these things. Can a group give an example of one of the technical challenges where maybe they had a hard time figuring out whether it was external, preventable, or strategic? Just to see. Where everything's slotted in pretty nice. Yeah.
You leave your claw on the end of the table during studio and another person accidentally knocks it over. Where is that external or is that preventable?
Oh, so another team knocked over your stuff. Whoa. Strategic. Good question. I don't know if that's a technical risk unless you designed your claw to be like impermeable to foliage damage. Maybe that's an operational or project management thing. So maybe, and to be honest, it could be another thing. It could be your own team, right? I've absolutely seen that happen. And so maybe part of the protocol is that maybe it's always like your system always lives in a box, right? Something, or it always lives on the ground, or something like that, where you actually do something active to prevent it from falling. But very good point. Yeah. Is it technical? Maybe not, but maybe the ways that you address it fall into, it's important and it falls into one of the other categories. So, cool. Anything else that kind of came up that was a little bit weird placed? Yeah?
If your claw is too small or too big, like if it's too big, too heavy, you can't close it, and it's too small, you can't pick up like a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay, so just the scale with which you build it is just incorrect.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, it's like the Zoolander example from last year, where you just like, you built it, and it's like, this is, we did wrong. The which? For ants, yeah, you build the claw for ants. No, there's no ants, but there is that little alien thing that you have to pick up. So it could very well be that you do design it incorrectly. So what's the test that you can do to actually maybe address that along the way, so that you do get the sizing right or even the weighting right on what you're trying to do? Yeah. I think that does classify as a technical risk. Yeah. Okay, you've got your lists. The objective for you, though, is to try to fill in things into the rest of the table as well. And that's one of the things that you will submit by Monday. Okay. And so the other activity is now to think and to convert those risks into experiments. Right? So if there is a risk that is on your list, that is a true risk, then is there a way to address that through an experiment that helps you make a decision around that? And so what we want you to do is to think about what this experiment is going to be. So we want you to think of something that does reduce risk. This is not an experiment to see how well your system actually worked. This is not an experiment to see how well your system worked after you built it. Right? So on your poster, the experiment shouldn't be, we tried out our claw on 7 objects and we picked up 5. Well, okay. How did that help you make a decision? Well, we picked up 5. Well, sure. It didn't help with any of the design or the decision making to help make that claw, right? It helped to classify the claw and see how well it did at the end, but it didn't help with making decisions. It didn't help reduce risk. So think carefully about what kind of experiment you can do that actually does help you out to say, to go in one direction or another, or to decide between a number of different choices. Okay? And again, do not just report on your claw performance. We'd love it if it had something quantitative, so even if it was successful pickups or drop-offs, maybe that helps, again, to decide which direction to go. It might involve parts that are specifically fabricated to do a test, and so you're able to put together parts either in the studio or at home, with cardboard or whatever else you got to do these experiments. And we want these things to appear on your poster as well. If you look at the rubric, experiments and decision making, they're a pretty hefty part of the weighting for your poster as well. And again, your posters are worth more than the cost of those. And so we have a table for you to fill out and work for as a group. So 5 items to fill out. So number 1 is, what risk are you actually trying to address and investigate? So which one have you identified as one that you really want to dive into?